creating credibility for you as the operator. Do you know why it's doing that?
So the person they're working with.
Yes, excellent. What else? Trust, yes.
To recognise the rapport.
Yes, recognise rapport, and also too, it's very much like a pacing, isn't it? And it gives you credibility because you did, when the person's in an altered state and you're mentioning things that's occurring to them, that's like you really are right with the person. Quite incredible. Yes, and so it's credible. So you really gain credibility in your ability to do that. So like I said the other day, I was with someone and they were in a phase in their life cycle, where they really were going through a phase of thinking about what they were going to do, when they retired. And naturally I knew this was the phase this person was in their life cycle, so that was something that I paced. And then the person said to me, "How did you know that?" That really I gained quite a degree of credibility because I totally was the other person in that moment to gain information on what was happening to this person. So you'll want to use a degree of suggestion. You'll want to use sometimes a language of possibility. So you'll want to be using modal operators of possibility. I wonder if you could, start to relax when you sit down. Okay, so start to relax was the embedded command. Okay, and it was paired to the person sitting down. Okay, so the embedded command was marked out. In fact, right, there was a little bit separated. So I said, as you go to sit down, you can start to relax. So start to relax was marked out. This works really well when everything is paced more towards the unconscious mind. And this is how the unconscious mind is speaking to the other unconscious mind, through embedded commands and things like this actually. The suggestion, you'll want to be calibrating. If your suggestion is going against this person's belief system, you're absolutely wanting to calibrate the things that you are saying, and the behavioural manifestation of that internal response is what you're going by. In other words, what this person's doing actually. When you ask them to do something, how are they accepting of this? Because you need to be very flexible at getting what it is that you want. Okay, so to be ecological basically is being mindful of introducing anything into the trance that possibly could be unpleasant for the person, right? So you should really be very mindful of doing that. And that quite possibly there's a need to have a little bit of a bailout anchor. Okay? In other words, you've got an anchor of feeling excellent and resourceful that you can fire off, so that the person comes back, to the here and now or something. If there was something that you mentioned that might not have been quite ecological.
That happened yesterday when we were doing the evening one. Ned used the word traumatic, which I think we were supposed to be thinking of like a crisis. And when he said traumatic, I went into deep SH1T. I went to saw the most serious automobile accident I'd ever seen. He helped bring these two people out of his car. I couldn't keep going with the exercise, and he had done a bailout anchor, thank goodness, because I was just in there like going wow, and he was telling me stuff, and he said, "Okay, come back, let's get another one," because it was too much.
Yes.
The word traumatic, that was like in my wire, and that was traumatic, and he thought, well, let's not go for something that big then.
Okay, so, being mindful, not to mention stuff that you are not sure about, like you talk about this person's grandmother or their grandfather or something or other, and actually they just passed away, a little while ago or something or other, and so, you really need to be mindful and sense the ecologicalness of the things that you introduce into the trance state. And you're using the Milton model, which is this fluff, this ability to use nominalizations, and I know that you're gaining some knowledge about this process. You see, you have to attest to your ongoing experience what the meaning of that is. and I know it'll be very helpful that you have the ability to be able to reflect back on this process at some time in the future. So very helpful. I've used helpful. There's missing performative. We're not sure how that's to occur. Unspecified verb. Help. We're not sure how that will occur. So you're using fluff, more or less, so that the person's attaching to their ongoing experience the meaning of this. Okay. Mostly you'll if you realise that there's a person's distracted a little bit, then give the unconscious mind something to think about. Give the conscious mind something to do. Something. Maybe when you use a phonological ambiguity, like certainly to duck or to feel the down in a coat softly into trance is like using semantical formedness or semantical formedness, because it doesn't make a sentence,
right.
And you're just joining things together, because a hypnotist doesn't necessarily have a value for rational language. If you do, then that's going to be a limitation in life, because there's a way that you can speak to the person's unconscious mind. They're trying to figure out what the meaning of that is, and actually you said the down in the coat softly now into trance. And so you've given the person's conscious mind something to, wonder about that, right? And literally you've marked out the words down softly now into trance. And the other words mostly that were marked out, that's the message that the unconscious mind has got. Conscious mind's trying to figure out what's going on. So you've occupied the conscious mind whilst you've said something else. Other phonological ambiguity, certainly the word light or the word weight or the word left, or the word apart. Nose. So, does that mean a part of, meaning connected to, or apart? Using phonological ambiguity, the person will be sent into their brain to do a transderivational search for information. And in the process of this, they've got to go inside to access the meaning of it. And that you can. So the main thing is that you're wanting to create a space in the person's nervous system where they go on record, where the brain goes on play and record. If you're wanting to input something, there's a need for space of the brain. Okay. So sometimes you may need to overload something that's occurring, so that the person will spin out of what they're doing into a space of being in record. So sometimes it's you interrupt by creating confusion. Sometimes that's the confusion, and then the very next thing that's said, because the confusion state was scrambled the brain, and then the very next thing that was put in really went in. So communication is always occurring when the person's in this state. Communication never not occurs. If a person's not communicating, that's communication. Okay? The person cannot not communicate. A good idea to set up a state where you're setting up idiomotor dynamics, so the person has the ability to be saying yes, no, maybe, don't know the answer to that, want to go on. Setting up some things like that, which are finger movements or motor movements, is going to enable a person to stay inside that state without having to come back out for auditory declaring something. And so, really sometimes there's a need for the person really to relax even more a little bit, so then you can set up a leverage induction that I did on D yesterday, where the hand was held up more or less, and it was paired to her ability to relax as her hand was coming down. So, you'll want to make sure the person has the ability to relax, and you can even say, and as time moves on more, you are feeling even more relaxed, and you have great ability to hear this in this relaxed state. And at the end of this, things will be sped up a little more. I'll clap my hands, or you'll hear something, and you say what that is, and everything is sped up again. So mostly, whilst the person's in trance, things are slowed down quite a bit more, and you're using this word slowed down to go back, to go inside, to suspend the present moment, to feel yourself floating. These are words which is involving a sense of trance being created. Sometimes when you set up the idiomotor dynamic, of course, a yes and a no, which I often do, or I'll ask a person a question that they say no to, then I ask a person a question that they say yes to. I'm watching their analogue, so then when they're talking to me about something they're going to do, I'm watching their analogue to see whether their analogue is saying yes to this thing that they're going to do or saying no. Because it's sometimes, like for instance, I might have asked somebody, well, do you think this is going to be an easy delivery? And I've set up yes and no, and the person's, so the left finger is no, and the right finger is yes. And I ask the person, you think this is going to be easy delivery? And the person goes, oh yes, I think so, And it's quite funny sometimes when the person all of a sudden realises, that their left forefinger has lifted, indicating no. And it's quite funny. In fact, this is process. This idiomotor dynamic is setting up for your ability and this person's ability to communicate at the process level. Because there's sometimes what the person's declaring might not at all be what the person's knowing inside. So, we talked about using fluff. I know that you know the meaning of this word fluff is an example of that. Okay? Continuity, that there's a need in deep trance that the subject may be allowed a number of minutes while the unconscious mind seeks or sorts something out. And that's one thing that people are kind of in need of really remembering, that this sometimes takes a little bit of time, and truly to allow the person to be inside, to go through some process. And you can even have them set something up with the person so that they're telling you each thing that they're going through, so that you're aware of that. So you'll want to use presuppositions. I presuppose that the person was going to go into trance. I just said to them, as you sit down and go into trance, we're going to be focused on some moment in the past, when you've been feeling excellent, or you're remembering a special moment or something. Okay, so the presupposition was that when this person sat down, they would be going into trance. Okay, so you have the ability to use presuppositions. I know that having this in the home is a great help. You've already gone past the process of having the person make the decision to buy it. They already have it in their home. You're presupposing that they have made the decision to buy this. If a person is polarising, like that might be a common thing, that you realise a person sorts information by polarising, then you may say, and the more that you are feeling the resistance of this, the more that you're learning something about what has been, so that you absolutely pace, the polarisation. And I know that you may not want to go through this process, and the more that you're sensing that you're feeling that you'd enjoy not going through this process, the more, in fact, that you're realising the usefulness that there is. Okay, so you're pacing something, and that's going to cause this other thing to happen. So if I was introducing scent to somebody, for instance, right, and it's a person that typically is a polarizer, okay, then I may go to that person and I'll say, you probably don't want to smell this, and I've got smell this in there, but I did say you probably don't, and the person goes, oh, no, sure I would. Okay, so you've given them the chance to polarise, and it's a polarisation toward what it is that you want. Okay? So you might even say, you realise that the person's kind of got a little bit of a polarisation about going into trance. So you might even say, you may not want to go into trance now, and I know that this is occurring, and you may remember some moment in the past where you were driving in your car and you used a universal, okay, and basically started off by pacing what it was that was actually occurring. This person was kind of having some difficulty going into trance. So that's really giving you credibility. You're pacing something that's happening for the person actually, and you're using that polarisation as a springboard to spring into other stuff, what you're wanting. Then we talked about bailout. You were wanting to have a bailout anchor just in case you come to a place where there's ab reaction, that you're really wanting to have a bailout anchor set up there.
How do you establish that?
A good idea to have anchored resourceful physiology for the person that you're working with, and even to say, well, it's possible, it may be something that's traumatic that you're working with, so then for sure you would want to have a bailout anchor, right?
So you'd first begin by having them go into a resource state?
Yes, go back to some moment in the past, some place. You might ask them to go back to a place where they've been before, that's resourceful, and get an anchor on that resourceful place. So now, induction, how the induction actually occurs. Now, Bernheim, what they call the father of hypnosis, I was sharing with someone just during the break, he would absolutely just command you, he would just say, go into trance, sit down and go into trance. He'd just go about doing something, and, he just would just totally just command the person, literally, right? And he would wait, and then when the person didn't go into trance, he would just command the person to go into trance, and he may share something about what that is, but basically, he really would just be commanding the person to do things. Good idea to have. Sometimes you're using modal operators of necessity, like notice that you can't open your eyes and that you can't lift your arm. Okay, and so actually the message becomes coded in the brain, at that level, and the person then may not be able to open their eyes, and even though they might try to, and you use the word try, which is a word which is involving a sense of failure, that the person probably may fail with this. So sometimes induction can be accomplished by just telling a story that's got fluff in it. Like I go, to kids especially, I'll go, once upon a time, many years ago, in a land far, far away, and the kids are getting excited, and of course, really, they're getting dissociated away from everything that's happening here, because I've said once upon a time, which, is about a bedtime story, once upon a time in a land far, far away, using far, far away, and there was this princess, or there was this prince, or something, and I weave a story that's got a little metaphor for the person, that's something that they're going through in life, actually. And it's really quite isomorphic. It has the same structure, and it's really a little bit removed from what the person's situation is actually. So it really allows an acceptance, that the structure really goes in. The induction simply can be you asking the person to remember some moment in the past where they were driving, and you elicit some state where there was a naturally occurring trance state.
Honey?
Yeah.
I'm wondering when we're going to break now for lunch.
I'm wondering about fire.
Oh, we have to do this on each other too?
Yes. Okay. Okay. Another 5 minutes here. sometimes you'll be wanting to stack things, okay? To get somewhere, you need to build resource states to stack things, okay? You'll certainly want to go through this Milton model and look at the various patterns that you can use. I really recommend at some point maybe you decide to read Patterns 1, get to know a little bit more about the induction and things like that. So that Patterns 1 is probably a very good book to get hold of.
What's the pattern?
Patterns 1.
Pattern? Who read
Patterns
it?
Volume 1.
Hypnotic Patterns of Milton H.E.R.'s.
Yes, by Baron Grinder.
And what pages have those?
It's on, I think it's, yes, 112 to about 116 or something, or 115. Punctuation ambiguity was what we went over before, where two sentences go together, that really don't go together actually, but there's messages in each that are joined that make sense to the person at an unconscious level. So you can use punctuation ambiguity. Sometimes you may need to use some kind of selectional restriction, right? Violation. Selection restriction violation refers to the attribution of qualities to something that's then inferred to something else, like the sad rock or a happy tomato plant. You see, a rock can't be sad. A person's naturally attaching what could be, that's a person, okay, and a tomato plant, feeling happy.
February, man, we're reading that Harrison.
Right, that's right.
What is that? That just it ties up the left brain?
Yes,
Okay.
and also too, it's a way of getting, speaking a message to the person's unconscious mind that sometimes the conscious mind would be just like, you would run into conscious objection. So that's the reason why you would want to use some kind of selectional restriction violation, talk about a rock. And actually, if you're using like a rock or a tomato plant actually, and the story's about a tomato plant, mostly, you're doing that because the person kind of has got conscious objection to you talking to them about the ability they have to relax, right? So then you can talk about planting or something,
It
sounds like even on the...
Will you give another example of that use of those?
I have one on the...
Yes, this mother and her daughter, okay, so I talk about this cat and how this cat really looked after its kitten, or I might talk a little bit about this kitten actually, and I am talking about a story that occurred, and it has...
But isn't that more like metaphor?
Yes, it's using metaphor, right.
But I mean, what's the example of using like the sad rock as, attributing a quality to something that wouldn't ordinarily have that?
Why would you want to do that?
Yeah, what's an example of how you would use that? How do you make use of something like that?
Okay, you can make use of something like that when you're running into conscious objection. So let's just say for a moment that this person is kind of really just kind of parroting something, and so you talk about a parakeet. This parakeet that I had. And so the parakeet, really is at one level of the person thinking, what the hell is this person talking about a parakeet for? And they're thinking about what a parakeet is. It's possible that at an unconscious level, this person relates to what that's the meaning of at an unconscious level, but maybe not at the conscious level. Or another example would be, it's Thanksgiving time, and I'm in that supermarket. I shared that story with you, and anyway, so somebody pushes into the line more or less in front of me, and they're there, and finally I turn to the person behind me and I say, I wish I bought that turkey. And this person sort of, you've affected their unconscious mind, but they did hear you talk about buying the turkey, the person behind you. So that's, the person's then wondering, because I marketed the word turkey, the person is wondering about what the selection or restriction violation actually, there's possible that it does relate to them. Because mostly people will be attaching to the ongoing experience what the meaning for them is. So, another thing is you talk about, here's like a whole group of people in front, and then there's somebody directing everybody, right? And they say, I want you people to wait in the line over here. What happened there? When I gestured on the word wait, I marked out with my hand and my eyes, I marked out Dave. Okay, so now let's just say that Dave is the heaviest person in the group, or I just said wait in the line over here. Okay, Dave is attaching to his ongoing experience the meaning of that at an unconscious level. Even though he did hear me talk about the whole group waiting over there, it was very interesting that my hand, stopped more or less there, and my eyes were cast to Dave when I said the word wait in the line over there.
So you would anticipate David being last in line?
But possibly could be something to do, David, with what he's thinking about, how that word is relating to him. Yeah.
You also read minds. I'm just getting ready to ask. Is voice inflection the only way of marking out? Then you say, wait.
Yes, okay, so analog is marking things out. So we're going to do a technique of spatial thought, so that then you'll understand how spaces are used around us and how you can use that to access various things as well. So we may be doing that tomorrow, I think. Okay, so basically some principles of Ericksonian therapy, more or less, is that people more or less are acting out of their own maps, of the world, and that you need to join their map, to be able to lead them somewhere. So if I were talking to a carpenter, then I certainly would be talking about dovetailing this joint here, right? So that it can be nailed either way. So then no matter which way I pull on the joint, it's going to have a set of nails holding it together. So you need to join the other person's model of the world. In any situation at any given time, the people are making the best choice that's available to them at the time. Okay, so that we need to remember that no matter what, when we see somebody acting, okay, they are making use of the best choice for them at the time, even if they're acting compulsively somewhat. They are making use of what they are sensing as the best use of some situation. The description of a person, alright, is not the person. That's something about this person's behaviour. So that we are clear when we realise the difference between a person's identity and what this person's behaviour is, so that we're making sure that we have the ability to sense what this person's identity is, that this is a person, that an idiot really doesn't exist. Idiotic behaviour may, but a person really exists. The other thing is that you really want to respect all the messages that come to you. That when someone says, no, I'm feeling, you really need to respect all of the messages that are coming from your client. You always want to be actually teaching choice, so the person's actually having the ability to have choice rather than acting from compulsion. So you're really creating and teaching choice mostly. That's what you're doing, and reframing things. It's more or less all the resources that a client needs, somebody needs, they have within them. So that when somebody comes to me, I'm totally focused on what this person can do. That's mostly what I'm focused on. I'm totally focused on what the person can do. And if they come to me, that's totally what I'm interested in. What is it that you can actually do inside? Because that's what I'm about. That person or that element in any system that has the greatest flexibility is always the controlling element in the system. So sometimes the child may be the most flexible, unit in the family. And if the child's the most flexible unit, then sometimes I might say something to the child actually that gets the parents back on track. Something really small, and the child actually does then. It kind of brings the parents back on track. Okay, so we just said before that people cannot not communicate, right? Do you get that? Mm-hmm. That a person's always communicating. So the thing, if something that you are moving through is becoming difficult, then there's a need to chunk it down.
What?
Chunk it down.
Yeah, chunk it down.
Smaller bites.
Make it in smaller pieces that a person can handle. Okay.
Start up.
Okay, so mostly all outcomes really are going to be determined at the unconscious level. So that you are wanting to draw this person's unconscious mind to be a part of this, because majorly that's what you are wanting to do in the process of involving hypnotic technique and hypnosis. So now hypnosis might not necessarily have to be involved in this process of going inward, right? Because certainly I shared that story about Neville with you, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So trance can occur and hypnosis can occur because you are just simply embedded the command to understand how it is that sometimes you've created a space
That was the
where,
garbage.
yes, right. Will I share that just right now? Does everybody remember that?
I don't remember.
Garbage.
Okay. I don't know whether everybody was here when I said it, but anyway, I'll just share it with you. I have this friend, Neville, who's a hypnotist in Australia, and he's a psychiatrist, and he's living in Sydney. Anyway, so I have this other friend, Chris Collingwood, and when I finish this story, we'll kind of wrap everything up for lunch. We'll actually go out and light the fire, will we? So Chris is head of the Neuro-Linguistic Programming Society in Australia. The two of them are sitting downstairs in Neville's house, and all of a sudden Neville says to Chris, "Oh dear, my son hasn't put the rubbish out again, and this is the only job only chore that I'm asking him to do, and he's again not put the rubbish out, because we call garbage rubbish in Australia." And so they thought, what could they do about this? Have you heard this, Steve? Okay. And what could we do about this? And so Neville and Chris started to talk about what they could do, and they came up with this scheme. So basically what Chris did was he went up into the room with another friend, and they blew quite a bit of smoke into the room. Okay, his son was asleep. And anyway, so after all this smoke had blown into the room, then all of a sudden Neville comes running upstairs with a little bit of water in a glass, okay, with his hand over the top of the glass, and he bursts into his son's room and he goes, "Fire! Fire! Put out the fire!" like this. And his son looks up and he sees his dad with his hand over the top of the glass with just a little bit of water in the glass, right? And then all of a sudden Chris bursts into the room. He goes, "Fire?" He goes, "What a load of rubbish," to Neville, and then they both disappear. And so there his son is, standing at the edge of the bed, and he's kind of like in trance. He's kind of rocking back and forth like this, trying to figure out what's going on, And next thing you know, they hear this stomp, 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 stomp down the stairs. Of course, what was marked out was "put out." Okay, fire, put out the fire. And then when Chris burst in, he said, "Fire?" He said, "Neville, a load of rubbish." And rubbish was marked out, okay? And they both left. And so put out the rubbish was basically what was marked out for, his son's mind. And anyway, so stomp, stomp, stomp. His son puts the rubbish out, and they have never had a... his son's remembered to do this.
The rubbish was always out.
Alright, okay, so we're going to practice after lunch, or when we get back inside, you'll want to practice your induction technique with someone that's willing, and you'll want to remember to start with an anchor of here and now, and then you want to let the person know what you'd like. Maybe you'd like to teach them about self-hypnosis or how to be able to anchor their own trance state, or something in fact the person's wanting. So then you'll practice your induction technique. We'll have the opportunity to do that. Okay, so let's break for our lunch break now.
Close, we can start this new one. We're going to do a technique that's immediately useful called the new behavior generator. In this technique, you imagine something you want to do very well, and then you see yourself from a distance as you do this thing really well, and you see what it is as you do it that triggers this good behavior. And then, after you see yourself from a distance doing it, you step into your body, and there you are behind your own eyes, and then you go through the process in your mind again of doing this thing really well. Very simple. And this will, yes, you can put something in there.
So you want to create the anchor for this dissociative state and hold that anchor whilst the person's reviewing the scene like you did yesterday. You remember doing this yesterday? Okay.
And once you do something like this, when it's actually time in real life to go out and do this thing, you've already set up the wiring to do it. So now you can imagine something that you would enjoy doing very well. It could be something like the fire walk or the pamper pole, both of which we're about to go out and do, so you could have an experience of really putting something into practice right away.
Could I say something
Yes, go ahead.
John? Just for the pan pole, just so you got the sequence right, okay, you'll be climbing up the pole, okay, and you want to really keep a roll going as you climb up there, okay, and you'll want to see, and everything is just perfect, like it's your ideal model. So in the fire walk, just so you know the sequence, we're going to be going round the fire pit, more or less. There'll be drummers, and more or less you're going to be very much in a visual mode and with an up energy. Mostly you're going to be looking up throughout the whole period of time where you're getting yourself into a state of a sense of feeling light in the body. And then we'll be walking around, and then you'll see me, join the circle. Let's say that I join it here. Okay, we're going round and round and round. All right. Next thing you know, you'll see me break out of the circle and come round. Okay, if this is the pit there, then I'll be walking through like that. Okay, and whoever it was behind me, Libby is behind me. She follows along, and everybody else is following along. We pass through the fire pit once, and then you can decide, if you'd like to give it another go. You'll have the opportunity to run through it 20 times if you like.
Does everyone keep circling?
Yes, everybody keeps circling there, and then you just decide when it is that you would like to go through. One more piece of the sequence is that at one point I'll step inside the circle, and I'll watch and I'll be looking to see that everybody's ready to do this as you're circling around. Then that's when I'll join the circle again. And then we'll go around a few times, and then you'll see me lead out across the columns.
Can I share something that really threw me off last night? Okay, as you went through the calls and John followed you, and you were, lifting your feet high, I didn't know that was part of it, but you were going through. I thought y'all were saying ow. And I thought you were lifting your feet up so high because you were burning your feet. And this was running through my head. So I didn't go right away. I had to watch several other people do it before.
Thanks
Really
for
what
the
you
tip.
were doing was just keeping your voices high and keeping yourselves light. But I thought you were burning your feet.
So that's the first time somebody mentioned these words, and you have the ability to dissociate and have what it is that you sense about feeling a sense of happiness and imagining that the sensation that you feel is just like a little bit like this popcorn underneath your feet.
Ice and water. So, if you like, why don't you choose one of those, pamper pole or fire walk, and go inside now and begin to envision yourself doing this.
How about could we envision hot coals on top of the pamper pole?
Of course, you'd want to make this as realistic as you possibly could, so that it'll be.
Logically sound.
So let's begin now by closing our eyes.
Okay, actually, are they going to work on crews to do this?
No, we just do it all right now.
Okay.
So you can
So
go.
there'll be one at the accessing period, won't there, that will trigger this once the sequence.
So you can go inside and see yourself from a distance doing one of these two things. And you can see yourself very clearly how you're standing as you're about to begin. And you can look all through your body and see how you might be breathing and how your body might be moving. And you might even see how it is that you're feeling about this. And see yourself doing this very well, just the way you'd like to do it.
You can adjust things so it's perfect. And imagine what it is
Taking whatever time you need
you'd like to adjust.
to make things just right.
Feeling a sense of lightness, keeping a raw balance.
And noticing what it is
What is it that you see?
that actually triggers doing this thing well.
That reminds you.
And when you feel comfortable with this and how you look as you do this, you can come back to the present by opening your eyes. And when we're all back in the room, we can close our eyes again and go inside and see yourself as you did before. And this time, step right into your body so that you're looking out through your own eyes
You can imagine.
as you stand
What it
there
is that you see
ready
through your own eyes.
to begin.
It reminds you.
And you can see the scene before you as you prepare.
You can feel. Reminds you of
You can even hear
sound.
the sounds that you might hear and feel the feelings in your body as you prepare and as you begin to do this thing. Especially being in touch with the feeling that you would enjoy being here. And now, looking through your own eyes, doing this thing, and maybe coming back and doing it again. And sensing that thing that triggers you to do this well. And you can rehearse in your mind's eye a number of times, trying little variations.
Sometimes you can be seeing this as if you're inside the body.
And trying it
Hearing, feeling.
another way until you have it just the way you like it. And when you feel comfortable with how you're doing it, you can come back.
Knowing that there's going to be another part of this where you'll have the time again to focus on something that you're going for today.
And feeling that you've already done it just the way you like. So we're not even going to do these things.
What do I do after I catch the trapeze?